All right, what day is it today? It's Thursday the 16th. That means it's Wednesday the 15th for you guys, I think. I think so. Hold on a minute. 10 o'clock at night in North America on the West Coast. I guess a handful of you who listen up here will be coming around any minute now in the morning on the East Coast, I'd imagine. Now, got me a coffee. We just went through some absolute insane rain downpour. And I'd be filming something, taking you guys outside and showing you something, but we haven't really gone anywhere yet. So, back to the boring B-roll, I guess, for another one. Now, who do we got? We got lots. Holy shizzle, this is a long email. Holy cow. Is it one? I think it's one. Yep. Oh, maybe two. All right, let's have a look here. There's two saved together in the folder. Oh, I get it. Okay, here we go. This is titled Redding, California Incident. And this is the follow-up email before the main one. Okay, I'll have to remember. I'll come back and read that after I read the first part. Hello again. I know you have a million of these messages and emails coming your way, but recently I felt like I had another sort of encounter very recently. I'm sorry if this is a bother or annoying in any way. I just feel like writing these down helps me cope with what's been going on. I've become comfortable enough to be more settled at night alone ever since I experienced those sounds and my buddy seeing what he saw. Anyway, I was watching my dad's girlfriend's dogs along with my own dogs one night as they went into town to eat. She has two dogs, a Chihuahua and a Shih Tzu. Her Shih Tzu is an absolute little asshole who doesn't like listening to me at all and loves to piss in my house. Oh, I hate those dogs. Oops, move the camera, sorry. After catching her peeing in the kitchen, I took her outside, and at this time it was dark. And ever since I had this series of nights hearing the grunts and my buddy seeing whatever it was come out of the forest, I honestly just don't go into my backyard at night anymore. I've been taking my dog out front to use the bathroom one last time before we go to bed instead of out back like I always have. The same thing this night with my dad's girlfriend's dogs. I've just been taking them out in front, but with the little shit peeing on me. I knew I couldn't walk her through the house to go out front. I had to take her out back. Of course, by the time I opened my back door and she sat down, she's all done. And right as I set her down, she bolts off into the abyss of darkness, and from what I assumed, straight into the bushes and trees towards these trails. As much as I've come to not like her, the little dog, I knew I wouldn't let her run away because, well, it's my dad's girlfriend's dog, and my dad would be insanely pissed if I let her run away. I didn't have time to run and get a flashlight, and more importantly, my gun. All I had was my phone, with this little light that I always assumed was really good until I got out into the bushes. But the moon is blocked by all the trees, and my house lights disappear. Oh, sorry. When the moon is blocked by all the trees and my house lights disappear, it gets really dark, as I assume you obviously know, and my phone light became somewhat useless. And as I took off into the bushes, I shut my back door behind me, so my dog or her Chihuahua wouldn't take off either. And as I ran into the forest calling out for her, Princess, yes, I know, what a fitting name, I couldn't hear anything. With those grunts in my buddy's face of what he saw racing through my mind, I have to admit, I was scared shitless. After about a total of 3, maybe 5 minutes looking around, I decided in my head that I couldn't take any more of this, and I was going to go home, and I hoped she was there waiting for me. I was just too scared in all honesty, albeit there was no sounds at all, nothing to stand out as unsettling, until I realized that there was actually no sound at all except me walking around. As I've walked in the back many times, I can usually always hear something, and I thought in my head, whether that be crickets, woodpeckers in the distance, or even the occasional owl. I have a really cool owl story. Those things are murderers, LOL. But in my head, for a split second, I began to think it was actually too quiet. I told myself I was being a pussy. And all throughout my life, I've explored and walked through my backyard and woods many, many times, and I have never, ever been scared, even as a youngster. I just never had a reason to be scared. But, man. All I can say is I was terrified. So terrified that I had enough and called it quits after about all 5 minutes of walking around. As I began basically jogging back, I finally saw the little bastard basically entrenched in a really big brickle bush. Right as the lights of my house began to appear, I felt so relieved. And as I walked to pick her up, she didn't run away like she always did. Excuse me, she just stood there frozen. I saw her little eyes look at me and then look past me to my right. And she began to take a small, attempted step even deeper into the bush. For about maybe half a second, I just saw her looking past me into the dark, and in my head, I assumed something was behind me. So I scooped her and some of the bush up and bolted towards my house. And after about 5 strides, I heard a massive, and I mean a massive thump behind me, almost as if something jumped down from the canopy of the trees. And I know what it sounds like when a deer runs by hauling ass. I've seen it too many times to count, as my backyard is like a highway for them to go from one side of the hill to the other. And this is no deer, being they're the heaviest animal that would have been around. I can promise that. Whatever she is looking at, I assume it started to follow me as I ran. Thinking back, I felt like she looked and was as terrified as I was. I think she saw something and it was behind me as I walked up to her. Now I completely understand this is likely my imagination, but I heard a ginormous clash of some heavy weight hitting the forest floor. And as I returned to my house, I ran inside and locked my back door. I ran to the front of the house and locked my front door. I immediately ran upstairs with all 3 dogs chasing me in suit and grabbed my gun. I closed my room door behind me, keeping all 3 dogs in my room, and headed back downstairs to my back door and turned on the back lights. I know this is bad, and I hope I don't piss you off with my next decision, but fear got the absolute best of me. I took about 2 steps out my back door and emptied my clip towards where I was running from. I immediately closed and locked my back door and headed back upstairs to grab another one. I didn't think to bring another clip with me. I still don't know why. And I reloaded and headed up to my attic to see if I could see or hear anything. And after about 20 minutes of nothing, I heard an attempt of someone trying to open the front door. And then the pounding of my dad, being pissed I had the front door locked. I knew this loud pounding of the front door all too well, as I used to lock the front door back in high school when my dad would leave so I could buy some time to put my weed away, change my shirt, and blast my attic fan at full blast before I would let him in. LOL. Yeah, I basically got caught every time. I never in my life been more relieved to have heard that pissed off loud pounding and the sound of my dad's voice. Why the fuck did you lock the door? I tried to collect myself as best I could before opening the door. Since that night, I still haven't told my dad, as I assumed I didn't really have any evidence or clues, or more importantly, proof to come forward to tell my dad about what had happened that night. And I felt like I let too much time pass by to tell him about what me and Kyle experienced. That night, really all the previous nights, I've basically have become nocturnal again, as I just can't sleep at night. But about 4 a.m. next morning, I thought I heard something shuffling around outside of my house. I looked out my window to try to get a view of the back, but I saw nothing. But it was enough to grab my gun and sit there, waiting, listening for something to happen. And the next night after what happened, it was the same as before. I was up into the early morning hours, watching shows on my iPad, when I thought I heard more shuffling around on the side of my house. I was wearing headphones, so as I took them off to try and hear, I wasn't sure if I actually heard anything. But that was until I heard further shuffling. And as I leaned over and looked out my blinds, I saw bushes and some trees moving directly back to where the forest begins. I know this is like the shittiest story, but there was no wind, So something had to make those bushes and trees move. I would have assumed it was a deer if I hadn't been for the fact that the lower part of one of the blue oaks was moving, and it was about 6'8" tall, to the absolute lowest point. I measured the next day with my dad's ladder and tape measure as best I could. And since my dad cuts the lower ends off some of the trees so we can walk back into the trails, unless a really big deer or something was on two legs, I don't know what else could have made those leaves and bushes move. Something was moving out there. I just couldn't get a glimpse of it. And since then, it's been back to hearing things here and there, but nothing stands out, nothing major. Just my imagination getting the best of me. And again, I'm sorry for the long story, and I know you have a million others that are better and stand out more, but I feel like writing this down helps in a way. I've been watching your channel nonstop now, and I've watched basically all your Bigfoot videos and a lot of your hunting videos. Your channel's amazing. And knowing that someone like you, who is as experienced as you, is a believer, helps a lot. I'm actually a knower. Because I know I heard something legit, and my buddy did see something that is real. And ever since then, my head just hasn't been right. I've even discussed moving to New Mexico with my grandparents because I may have a potential internship there, which is an absolute lie. I just feel like I'm not welcome anymore. But I just don't think I could ever leave my dad and dog behind with what's going on. Thanks for having an open email to the plethora of different people who experience these things. I realized I didn't put my name down in the last email. Thanks again. Miles, Redding, California. Okay. All right, so your original email is attached here, and I just skimmed through it because there's a lot of paragraphs there that's not related to too much for what the viewers are interested in. Not that that shouldn't be a factor here, but we did read it before, and your buddy has seen this thing out back when he looked out the window, and he's terrified, and he took off and went back home. Is what happened previous to this. Now, you did add on another little email on the end of this, and it said, "I'm sorry, but I forgot one part. As I was firing into the forest and ran back inside, I grabbed all my casings. Only 8 of them, and didn't feel like looking around my backyard in the dark, so I took all 8 with me and basically just threw them in my attic and closed upstairs. About 2 days later, my dad stepped on one casing and got really pissed off because I fired from my back door before, and my dad took my gun away from me. So now I don't have my gun anymore as well. I can't believe I left that part out, as it was one of the main reasons I've replied to you again, which now has made me even more uneasy. Sorry I forgot to add this. I'm sorry I forgot to add this. There's really my main motivation to email you again. Thank you again." Okay, man, you know what you should do? Or, well, I don't tell anybody what they should do. But you might want to think about sending one of these videos from my channel to your dad and just get him to sit down and listen. I'm slurping on a coffee here, you guys. And then it might be a good, if you don't feel comfortable delivering to him what you guys know what's going on, maybe just try sending him one of these videos. Tell him he's got a few minutes, sit down, grab a coffee, and listen to me share some honest experiences. And you know what? You never know. He might come forward and tell you what he's seen, right? You never know. Give me an update when you get a chance too. Now this is titled, "Tell My Story?" ? Hi Steve, my name is Alan. Excuse me. I'm 62 years old. I ran across your videos on YouTube and have listened to many of them and believe the accounts to be true, as I've had my own experience. It was many years ago when I was a teenager, around 1974. I lived in Bellingham, Washington, out in the country north of the city when it was still mostly uninhabited. And you could go a long way to find a street light. I lived out on a country road a few miles away from any main boulevard that went into town. Me being a teenager and having the need to get out of the carouse. Might have been a typo. Oh, sorry. That's me being stupid. Let me read it again. Me being a teenager and having the need to get out and carouse, I would hike out to see the main road and make my way into town on weekend nights. I would not make it back to where I lived until the wee hours. One night, on the way home, I was walking up the country road that I lived on when there was a sound about 20 feet off the side of the road just inside the thick of the woods that was like nothing I've ever heard before. And now I know it was not anything of normal wildlife, you would find in Washington State. At that time in my life, I had no idea what a Sasquatch was or even heard of such a thing. But I know whatever it was not a cow or a bear, and they certainly were not any gorillas in our state wandering around in the woods. But if I described the sound of what I was hearing that night, that would be the closest thing to what I was hearing. And it was throwing a tantrum like nothing you've ever heard before and letting me know that I should expedite my travels double time and move along post haste. There was loud grunts and vocals, crashing and thrashing sounds of snapping trees, and of course, I double timed my pace, to put it mildly. Well, I know that area pretty good. I know exactly where it took place and went back the next day into the woods where whatever it was had been. Now I know this may sound a little outrageous, but there was about a half a dozen alder trees, approximately 4 to 5 inches in diameter, snapped off clean, like taking a pencil in your hand and breaking it in two. They were snapped off about 3 to 4 feet from the ground, but like I said, I never saw it, but I heard it. And when the day came that I did get wind of that Sasquatch, but I heard it, and when the day came that I did get wind of what Sasquatch were, well, I think I have a pretty good idea of what it was that was in those woods that night. Although that experience did not stop me from making any excursions into town on the weekends, it did give me chills every time I would venture down that road on my way home, and I and the entity that I had experienced never crossed paths again. And there you go. Welcome to the club, man. Your description of what you saw with those broken alders, that made my brain go to what I videotaped and shared with you guys a few years back. Dozens of them broken off that high, and all the waist-high grass stomped flat as a rug. And that's where we heard the knocks. My friend heard the knocks too. Not me, but he did. Appreciate that email. Now, here's another one. This is an older email I found earlier, scanning through my emails. Excuse me, and I always remember receiving it, and I couldn't find it again. I don't even think I shared it, but I'm going to share it now. It has a photo, right? The email title is Dug Too Deep. Hello, sir. Is it safe to write a book of my findings and call it a non-fiction book? I don't know. I do know I used to have a dedicated account with Tyson Chicken hauling 79,800 pounds of frozen chicken and pork from Texas to the middle of nowhere, USA, along with at least 300 other tractors 2 times a week, driving 7 miles underground to offload with an armed guard in your truck holding your cell phone. We all offloaded, but no one loaded anything. This was not a cross dock. 300 times 79,000 pounds of meat 2 times a week is a lot of food to be taking 7 miles down. I tried asking the guard questions after 7 months of doing so, and I was moved to a new route. I asked myself numerous times, is it a deep freezer, cold storage, military base? I don't think so. I think it was to feed something. Or UFOs maybe, loading it to feed the reptilians in Anunnaki. I don't know. It has to be something along those lines. Are we not feeding them enough? What if the supply stopped? There were 3 locations that I went to, and one was under the Denver airport. All of the loads were sealed when I picked them up. I had no visual of the loading or unloading. This was a few years ago, but I can't help but think about it. I have a lot more to share if you're interested. How far do you want to go down the rabbit hole? Sincerely, I'll leave your name out. And here's a photo. Now, I don't know nothing about this. This is new to me. Have you guys heard of this? Is there any other drivers? It's surprising to me that if it was top secrecy, 7 miles underground, why would they let a civilian drive the truck? Why would they have their own drivers? You know what I mean? But I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. Anybody know anything about this? If so, let's hear about it, because it sounds like it's possibly quite alarming, right? I'd say. Odd, to say the least. And we haven't had any other drivers email us. I haven't heard nothing about this. So let's see what happens in the comment section below, or in my inbox anyway. All right, here we go. Who's next? There's an interesting name coming up next here. Oh, where'd it go? This is another email from the late, great Scott Carpenter, rest in peace, that was in my inbox, marked as unread. Here we go. This is titled A Very Interesting Bigfoot Story. Steve, here is the story I mentioned in my last email. I was told this about 6 months ago. It happened. If you use this story publicly, please do not disclose the location. Just say a highly sensitive government facility in the South. Okay, hold on a minute, and some other things. All right, hold on a minute. All right, hold on a minute. I got to start this again because the first paragraph is telling me where this was, who this came, a whole pile of information. Then the second paragraph, he said, if you use this story publicly, please do not disclose the location. Just say a, quote, highly sensitive government facility in the South. Okay, gotcha. And then he went on to talk about people who he knows directly that works there. So we're going to skip over that and get into it. Quote, Sister Megan Rice, Michael Wally, and Greg Borch Obed were originally convicted of felony sabotage for their 2012 actions in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where they cut through fences and sneaked into the most secure area of the Y-12 National Security Complex. Once there, they hung banners, prayed, and hammered on the outside wall of the bunker to symbolize a Bible passage that refers to the end of all war. They will beat their swords into plowshares. Quote, this is first-hand information from an employee that works in the facility. That works in security. And at the time, he was responsible for monitor the surveillance cameras and dispatching security when suspicious activity is detected. Starting around 2010-ish, a year or so before the nun broke in, this security worker notices something very odd dig under the fence and come onto the facility grounds after perimeter alarms alerted him to a breach. It was a large, hair-covered man, approximately 10 feet in height and weighing over 500 pounds. He was aware of what Bigfoot is, so he knew what it was. He was freaked out and did not know what to do. He did not want to send armed security guards to go look for a Bigfoot, so he called his supervisor over immediately, showed him the footage, and asked, "What do you want me to do?" The supervisor told him to monitor the situation, but take no action until he told him how to handle this. Footage. Crazy. The next day, the supervisor called all those in the next day, the supervisor called all those in that area for a meeting. In the meeting, he said that, quote, upper management, end quote, had decided not to take action or harm the creature. They did not need an incident with a Bigfoot. If they discharge their weapons or even investigate a possible breach, there are mounds of reports and paperwork that have to be completed, plus the notification of many people up the chain of command. It was decided to avoid this mess and possibility of it leaking out if a lot of people were made aware. So, the order went out to not call for security if the Bigfoot was spotted again or set off the perimeter alarms. I think he said that they would document it as an animal incident. The Bigfoot would come through the fence at this area on a regular basis. So much so that the staff just ignored it because it happened almost nightly. Fast forward 2012, the nun and the other people with her just happened upon the location where the Bigfoot was regularly going under the fence as they were looking for a way in. So, they just slipped under the fence in this spot, and no one looked at the security footage because they just assumed it was a Bigfoot again. Well, the rest is history. The nun and her companions got in the facility, hung banners, and prayed, and when they were finally noticed, security was dispatched and they were arrested. but they had to make up a cover story that the nun cut through the fences and then take it on the chin about lack of security because of the Bigfoot. It was a real mess for the security people. And he said no one got into much real trouble other than they had to check the security footage every time the Bigfoot came under the fence. The Department of Energy is aware they exist and have repeated clear footage of them. Just another example of government employees encountering these creatures. Talk to you soon, Scott. There you go. Another one from Scott. And more denials and cover-ups, right? There you go. Take from what you will, leave it. Interesting. Okay, moving along. This next email is titled Bigfoot. I watch your YouTube videos and I get a kick out of you dogging people. What? Anyway, I watch often YouTube videos on this subject and recently found one that calculated the speed of these creatures. It was calculated running 52 miles per hour uphill. And to answer your question, ask yourself why we're not being told about these creatures. And my answer is, they are bigger and stronger and faster. Wait, that sounded like the opening of the $6 million Man show. Steve Austin, a man barely alive. We can rebuild him. When we have the technology, we can make him better than he was before. Better, stronger, and faster. Giggling out loud. Maybe Bigfoot has bionics. It's possible, you never know. That's my thought outside the box. Not making fun, just my plausible opinion from many videos I've watched. I've watched other channels like yours reading people's stories of their encounters with these creatures. Some are positive, like saving a child from danger. Big bull charging a kid who froze and a female Bigfoot stopped the bull and killed it. And some are negative, like being followed, stalked, or hunted to get you out of the area. Some charging at you. But, weird thing, other hunters have guns, but no one hardly ever shoots. Shock and awe, I guess. I recently saw a video that read a story where a hunter was waiting for this certain big buck and it finally shows up. He shoots it, runs a few yards, and drops. And before he could climb down, a Bigfoot grabbed it and hauled it away into the woods by its antlers. And that's just wrong. I haven't had an encounter in real life, but I did have a dream about them. I watched one video that states Bigfoot communicates telepathically. So, in my dream, I'm walking in the woods on a trail. I hear sounds of someone following me, parallel to my position. And Bigfoot steps out of the woods onto the trail, blocking me from going forward. It starts to move toward me, and I use my mental thoughts yelling, saying stop with hand gestures, and it did. I began to speak mentally without verbally speaking and told the Bigfoot not to do this because this is why people hunt you down. I also told this Bigfoot, which was a male I believe, not to take any animals that belong to people. Horses, cows, dogs, chickens, you name it. That will get people to hunt you down. Even if you don't want encounters with people, stop messing with their stuff and them. I said you need to move so I can continue my hike, and it slowly walked off into the woods, and then I woke up. Weird dream, but so lifelike. I was brave in my dream, but in real life, maybe not. I don't know. Never been in that situation, and I don't want to be to find out. I believe they are real, even though I've never seen one, but in my dream. I thought I would share this. Have a great hunt. Be careful. They're watching you. All right, there you go. Thoughts and words from an avid follower of this channel on this topic. One more. Sun's coming out. I think we're going to go outside here pretty quick. Hey, my name is... Okay, this is titled, sorry. Sasquatching. Hey, my name is Robert. My story began in a forested university-owned piece of land that I've been visiting for 13 years of my life. I know it like the back of my hand, at this point anyway. And this is about 3 to 4 years... This was about 3 to 4 years going into these woods, and mind you, they aren't big. Maybe 3 city blocks by 2 or so. Sorry, I don't know how to guess acreage or anything, but anyway, I just learned some basics of Sasquatches from a friend of mine. We'll call him Jay. and we were at this camp being run by the University for Kids. I was about 9 or so, and excuse me, every single one of us kids pretty much were playing in the wood in this giant tree structure that I literally, as I'm typing this, just realized that the dogs were so damn big, there's no way humans put them like... There's... What? Oh, the logs. Sorry. Okay, I screwed right up, you guys. Again, excuse me. Literally, as I'm typing this, I just realized that the logs were so damn big, there's no way humans put them like that. So, we come out of the woods finally because the leaders told us we had other stuff to do. A couple minutes later or so, I was looking in the same woods area again, and I saw a hairy head and shoulders walking away from a small clearing where it would have had a very clear view of us kids. Needless to say, I knew from then on that was about... There's no punctuation, you guys, just so you know, like nothing. Needless to say, I knew from then on that this was about 10 or so years ago, and now I've seen clear video footage of their faces. And then in general, so my adult mind knows now, but I've never had another face-to-face encounter, and I was so young at the time that I wasn't scared. So I think I'd be okay with having a peaceful interaction with one of them. And who knows, maybe make a friend, haha. And yes, I'm freaking serious. I'm cool with these beings. Being real, just like anything else. They're just animals. And from all the legends I've heard in the story from other channels, subscribe to one... Typos, you guys, sorry. One saving his 2 daughters and wife from a car crash. Yeah, you can bet they'll be your friend if you're not hostile, it seems. Thanks. You can share my name because F the haters. Robert Anderson. Gotcha, man. Okay, we had no punctuation there, you guys. All right. But we got through it. Happens sometimes. Some days are smooth as glass, and other days, well, it's a bumpy ride, but we get her done. Get her done. Anyway, I think that should be good for now, for today. It was absolutely pouring rain. We're stuck inside, and now it's sunny out, so we're going to go salvage some of this daylight and get something done. Share my story, howtohunt.com. The train's not going to stop rolling, so jump on board, get your stuff shared. I'll be back later.